except inside my guitar amp, which was melted like a candle as I went through there, and the place was all burnt and wet and black stuff all hanging down and water. I seen something white inside my guitar case, and I'm with a flashlight, and I go up inside there, and this little Bible was parted that I'd found in the floor, that old bar, and it said, "With every adversity lies the seed to something better." And I just kind of felt those hands on me saying, okay, you're supposed to take this moment now, and since Nashville says, you know, you're too rock and roll, then I guess you're supposed to go to Los Angeles. And I left like a few days later, heading for L.A., thinking, man, I'm going to go out there, and if they say I'm too rock and roll, I'll go out there and get me a rock and roll deal. And so I went out there and spent a couple of years, everybody telling me I was too country. So, you know, one of those things. But again, back to failure. Thomas Edison said the most important ingredient for success is failure. Every time you fail, you eliminate one way that won't work.
That's exactly right. Back with Billy Ray Cyrus in just a second.
All gave some gave all.
You know, this is a song, Some Gave All. It was a song that you wrote for our vets. Let me go back. This came out at about the same time Achy Breaky Heart came out, which was a huge smash, but you were never accepted by Nashville. You still weren't country enough, right?
Not really. I don't know that it was more about what I sounded like than what I looked like, and also the way I made my music. To me, I always wanted to be real. I always thought an artist was someone who makes music that they live, and the art of music and the way you make it, it was, you know, supposed to represent some type of integrity of the artist. Right. And the guys I loved was Willie Nelson and Chris Christopherson, Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, and Bruce Springsteen. You know, those were guys that wrote and sang about what they lived. Well, I also had this concept in my mind that, quite frankly, held me back considerably in Nashville. Was even if I would get a label talking to me about, okay, man, well, we might structure you a little deal, but you got to sound like this, and you got to look like this, and you got to wear a hat about this big. And I was like, but that's not what I do. I write my songs, and this is what I do, and I love working up my songs, and I play them with my band, and I got a sound. This is what I do, and it's part of who I am. And they never was too much interested in that, but I did find one guy. His name was Harold Shedd, and I wrote this song, Some Gave All, back in 1989, and you know, I felt like, wow, it's a song I wrote about a Vietnam veteran. And in 1990, Harold Shedd let me sit down. I said, man, if you just give me 5 minutes, I'm going to play you a song, and if it ain't good enough, then I guess I should think about doing something else. And I got my guitar out, and I played him the song, Some Gave All, and he stood up off his couch, and after 10 years of being told no, somebody finally looked at me and said, I'm going to structure you a little deal. I'll be right back. And he came back in with the head of the label, and the guy shook my hand and said, hey, welcome to Mercury Polygram Records. We'll call your manager. And I was like, really? And I'm going to get my stuff and get out of there before they could change their mind. And I ran across the street and told my manager I just got a record deal, and that's kind of the way it happened. But, you know, it was more about, I just, you know, I was just original. You know, I didn't really fit the club, and that's all right. I never really wanted to.
Now, this was about Vietnam vets. I mean, you've received a Bob Hope Congressional Medal. I mean, you've really kind of found a home with the military and the vets.
It was ironic, you know. I had written this song again, Some Gave All, back in 1989, and little did I know that at that same time period there was a Vietnam veteran that was trying to get some songs cut down in Nashville, and wasn't really having a whole lot of luck at it. And when I started cutting my album, I began with Some Gave All, and I had 9 other songs to go to finish the album. And a guy played me a pretty rough work tape of this little demo called Don't Tell My Heart, and it was just something about it, you know. I just said, I love that, man. That's me. And I went and worked it up with my band that night and started playing it, and immediately people started coming up saying, play that Achy Breaky song, play that Achy Breaky song, you know. And one thing led to another, and I went and recorded it, and it became the single and a big hit record, and it became on the album Some Gave All. I threw off one of my songs that I had written. I wrote 6 or 7 off that first album, Some Gave All, and I threw one of mine off and added "Don't Tell My Heart," which before the record came out, I felt like the title was wrong. I thought, man, I think the name of the song's "Achy Breaky Heart," and the record company changed the name, and I'm glad they did.
So what is your involvement now with the armed forces? Are you still involved with USO, or what is your experience with the armed forces?
Well, it became, again, back ironic that, you know, here's this fun little song, "Achy Breaky Heart," and when we began, the day the album was released, I happened to be playing at the Vietnam Veterans Wall in Washington, D.C. in 1992, May of 92. It was a Memorial Day weekend, part of Rolling Thunder. And there were thousands of veterans there, and they were there to hear "Some Gave All." The song had kind of started leaking out a little bit, and you know, that from that moment on, and when we played "Some Gave All" there, it was just a real special moment that the song took on a life of its own.
It's amazing how, especially the Vietnam vets, just up until, you know, you experienced it in the 90s. I experienced it around the, you know, around 2000, 2002, where people just started to feel like finally they were feeling thank you. You know, they carried that burden for so long by themselves.
You're exactly right. And Don Von Tress, who wrote "Achy Breaky Heart," you know, here all of a sudden, I've written "Some Gave All," and Don Von Tress has written "Achy Breaky Heart," and we meet each other in the studio, and he shakes my hand. He said, "Thank you for writing "Some Gave All," man. It was nice to hear somebody pay tribute to the Vietnam veterans." And I said, "Well, thank you for writing "Achy Breaky Heart." And little did we know how things were going to change, and ended up putting Don in my band. He and I went and toured the world a couple times, and he was a heck of a guitar player, and we wrote a bunch of songs together, and became one of my best friends.
Okay, when we come back, Dancing with the Stars and Billy Ray. Coming up.
We have to figure out what's your strengths and your weaknesses are.
Well, my strength is you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
other than that, everything's a weakness. You take Karina, who's a world-class ballroom dancer, and you put her with a left-footed hillbilly from Kentucky. That's not right.
That's from Dancing with the Stars on ABC. Tough.
You ought to do that show.
No,
You'll love it. You'll love
I
it.
could follow the steps of Tucker Carlson. There would go my career.
Let me tell you, I knew when they brought up the offer, and you know, and I was already in the middle of making this album. I'm busy as could be with Hannah Montana.
Yeah.
I got plenty of kids, you know.
Sure.
I got plenty of stuff to keep me busy. So,
National embarrassment.
yeah, so when they brought up Dancing with the Stars, I said, you know what, I'm not a dancer. That's a misconception about me. I've never danced in my life. I don't know anything about dancing. Anyway, my kids kept saying, come on, Daddy, you always said Can't never did anything. And
really?
My little girl is 7-year-old, little Noah, said, Daddy, my teacher told me to tell you to never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. And this and that, plus my intuition. I listen to my inner voice every now and then. Sometimes it gets me in trouble, and this time it did. It kept saying, you got to do this. And I'd say, but I can't dance. But that voice would say, but you got to do this. You got to do this. You know what? I wouldn't trade the experience for anything because of one thing.
Yeah.
One night, you mentioned you've spent some time in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
On one given night, I look across the dance floor, and there's Muhammad Ali. And I said, you know what? These judges are going to roast me no matter what I do, so I'm going to go see my hero. And right at the end of my dance, I went over there and kind of squared up and started throwing some punches, and he put that fist up there and threw a couple punches back. And so while I stood there getting roasted by the judges, he kept throwing those punches, and I was like, wow, that's Muhammad Ali. And when we took a break, he came and gave me a big hug, and it was just, that was worth it all for me right there.
So I just have to get this straight, because my children would hang themselves if I did Dancing with the Stars. My children would not be pushing. They'd be begging me, please, dear God, Dad, don't do Dancing with the Stars. Your children encouraged you to do it.
It's sick. They punted.
It is.
They wanted
There's
to
something
see.
wrong with
they
your
wanted
children.
to see the old man punting. They wanted to see it. They wanted to see me make a
It's not
fool out of
punishment.
myself.
I don't understand how that
Yeah.
works.
I don't
Because
either.
I do that. I'll go to the mall with them, and I'll just, hey kids, I'm going to bust a move. If they're misbehaving,
That's right.
I'll announce at Nordstrom's.
That's right.
Dad's about to bust a move, and they're right in line, man.
Yeah, I'm with you. It was a sick, twisted thing.
So what do
for
you
my
use to
kids
embarrass
taught
your
me that.
kids?
Well, you know what? They kept saying, you know, come on, go on with this thing. Do it, Dad, do it. And, you know, one step led to another. I knew right off the bat. I mean, I had no business out there. There were great dancers out there. Not only the professional dancers, and God bless my little partner, Karina. I mean, she's a world champion, and she gets stuck with me for a partner. That's unfair. But even some of the contestants were extremely good dancers. Extremely good. I had no business out there. But in saying that, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything.
Well, the Muhammad Ali thing.
It was great. It was great, and we did yesterday at this big in-store in Pennsylvania, and all these thousands of kids coming through and talking about Hannah Montana and Dancing with the Stars. Hannah Montana and Dancing with the Stars. And those people, boy, it was just...
I would just be saying, stop reminding me of it. All right, grab your kids. We're talking Hannah Montana with her one and only dad, Billy Ray Cyrus, after the break.